You've given us minds to know you, hearts to love you, and voices to sing your praise. Fill us with your Spirit that we may celebrate your glory and worship you in spirit and truth, wherever we are, through Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen. So I'm grateful to have the opportunity to introduce to you someone who many of you already know well, but John Dahl and Nolan Weiss, who are the owners and ministers for Red River Leadership and Red River Worship, and who are our webinar leaders tonight. We're grateful to you, John and Nolan. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. Like Bishop Bill said, my name is Nolan Weiss, coming from Moorhead, Minnesota, and I serve as the Worship Arts Director at Calvary in Alexandria, Minnesota. And just grateful to be here today. Just a little bit about myself so we can start talking about all that we are up to together. I grew up in the church, was pretty much born right into the church. My grandpa and grandma baking bread, making noodles, men in mission, doing the quilts, on the council, anything and everything. We even got to take the communion bread home after service was done, and I remember eating the communion bread sorry if this is illegal, Bishop Bill. I just am extra holy, I think, from all those loaves of bread
I ate some of the leftovers too, so no worry.
Just ate on the way home back to the farm. And it set the course for my life forever. Not saying that it's all been ups. It's been a rocky road, as many people's faith lives have been. But I also remember as a middle school youth at Bible Camp of the Cross in Western North Dakota, and just having that first moment of, wow, this is personal. This is about me. This is about the people I'm surrounded by. And just having those moments that have changed and shaped my life forever. And excuse me. And now, as the Worship Arts Director and being able to work with you guys, the Synod, Red River Leadership, now I get to spend every single day, and everything I do is in line, in mission with telling that story and praising God more and more and more. And that brings us to now, which are crazy times depending on how you view everything that's going on. We are pastors of super Republicans and super Democrats and everything in between. We've got the conspiracy theorists and the people who sleep with masks on, which is kind of like me, and everything in between. And we are the church where all of us come together and all of us praise God, and we love every single person, no matter where they're coming from. And there's never been a better time for us to be the church and shine the light of God to the masses. And that all started for us at Calvary March 15th. We've been doing online services on Sundays ever since, as well as daily inspiration, Bible verses, messages, and songs, and doing everything that we can do to reach people who have not experienced, especially the outsiders of the church, has been a huge focus of ours. And before we get into the how, I just want to, some of you might have heard this already, but just a little bit about what we've been experiencing. At Calvary, we have had more people engaging online throughout the week than we had previously in person. And not only do we have more people engaging, and that's not just viewing, that's people who are, it's not just watching the thing, it's the prayers, it's the volunteers. We're packing bags for people, for kids who don't have meals, Habitat, building houses for people. We are just all kinds of things and engaging in ways that we are so excited about. And there are so many stories that we continue to hear from people who have never and would never step foot in a church, but they are watching online with us. So now instead of being a building and worshiping in there and people coming into us having to choose which church to go to, which denomination, are they going to wake up early enough on Sunday? Now we are coming to them and they can watch along with us live at 9 o'clock on Sunday, or they can watch it Saturday night and a happy hour, or they can watch it Monday after they get done cruising the lake and golfing and whatever else they are doing. But it has gotten us the ability to connect with people who, if we had been in church the whole time, they would have not heard the message of love and salvation through Jesus Christ. And so that is just so exciting. And that just connects to those experiences that I had starting when I was a kid all the way through my entire life. Those moments that we can bring to people's couches, cuddling with their kids and their dogs and whatever their life looks like. And now connecting people from Western North Dakota to Minnesota, where we're at, to each coast of the nation, to we even have people who are joining us overseas, and you can track all of that. And so it's an exciting time. And so we are so excited that we can work together, talk about tools and tips, hopefully provide some guidance along the way so that not just my church or John's church or your church, but all of our churches and all of our leaders can connect and work together to be the church that we are called to be. So I'm super grateful for this opportunity. I'm going to pass it over to John. You get to meet him a little bit.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm John Dahl. Super excited to be here. You know, it's funny, though, Nolan, you say we can reach people on their couches, but I find that they're still just as late as they would normally be on a Sunday morning. So I don't know if you guys are tracking all that. But no, I think a lot of, like Nolan said, we have a huge opportunity here. And I think this opportunity has been on the table for a long time, and we just chose not to either invest into certain technologies or just continue to do the things the way we've always done them. I have a lot of ways of doing things that I love to do, but I know along the way I have to change those things as things change. As times change, as new technologies come out, it's us as a church being willing to try new things. And I think COVID really pushed us into this experience where suddenly we went, oh, okay, so that's what we need to do now, or that's a better way to do this or that. And I think from the beginning, at least for me, when I started at Good Shepherd, it was 2012, I suppose, 2014. We had no idea what we were doing online. We had no plan for online worship. We had no streaming. We weren't doing anything like that. In fact, we would set up an iPad just in the back of the room, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to right now. And we did it more so just so we could see how we were leading worship, what it looked like, what it felt like. And we could kind of play it back and go, oh, why did I make that face there? Oh, that sounded like this, or oh, that was goofy. And just ways to be better leaders in front of people as church leaders. And then soon we had a pastor that said, hey, what's the cheapest way we can get online? Like the cheapest, let's do that. So we did that. We had just an iPad in the back of the room that we would stream directly from. And I think along the way, we realized as we were streaming it, we were playing it back on Monday, and all we were picking up was the room. So at that point, we realized it's so echoey. How do we use the microphones we already have installed? How do we get those directly into the iPad to get a nice clean audio? So that way it doesn't actually feel like an iPad in the back of the room and sound like an iPad in the back of the room. But that way you can get audio directly out of your board right into your iPad stream. And I think once we figured that out, that was a big piece of it. And then what COVID did, because we had still been using at Good Shepherd, we'd still been using iPads. We switched to a multi-iPad system at that point, and the program's called Switcher Studio. So I'll chat more about that as we go here, but it was a great program for us to implement right off the bat, Switcher Studio. Still is. We still use it for a handful of projects. But that program allowed us to use multiple iPads, that we could have one iPad right up close to the pulpit for when the sermon was on. We could have another iPad right up close to the piano for when piano was leading hymns. We could have an iPad right up next to the kids choir when they were singing. So we were able to add in iPads But then kind of what happened was that, you know, people at the time, right away, people said, well, there's iPads all over the church. This looks terrible. Like, how are we going to, but it's funny because those same people today are saying, we're so thankful that those iPads are there so we can worship from home. So just kind of that shift in mentality was a really big deal. And we knew as part of our mission back then that we needed to get our worship experiences online somehow. So we started using that Switcher Studio, and it allowed us to have a few different iPads, different angles like I've talked about, so you can really bring that focus in into what's happening in the worship experience. I think we all can relate to if we're scrolling on social or we see a video, but it's so far back that you can't see who's talking in the front of the room. And it's not about who's talking. However, if someone's leading you through a worship experience, it's nice to see their face, who they are, how they're speaking. So again, it's not about us leading, but it is about the people viewing it, being able to hear that leadership well and kind of see what's going on well. So it's about taking the small steps to get really intentional about it. Somebody posted, I think it was the other day, I saw an email that said, would you watch your church's worship? Like if you weren't in the position you're in, and you weren't the pastor of your church, you weren't, you know, whatever each and every one of your positions are, is it something that you would intentionally tune into? And just being real with that question. And if the answer is no to that, okay, what can we do to improve that? Is it finding some dollars to implement something? Is it bringing some people in to help move to the next level of whatever it is? Is it literally sliding an iPad from the back of the room up to the front of the room? And where some people might be uncomfortable, but right now, if you're not worshiping in person, it doesn't matter anyways. You can get very intentional about those shots. I've loved like what Maddie's doing at Luther Crest, for instance. They have these campfire worships and they're awesome. I don't even know if you guys use iPads or what you use for that, but you're able to you feel like you're there. Like you feel like you're in the room having a camp worship. And that's the goal, right? I mean, we want to pull people into that experience that we can't get without being there. So again, kind of thinking about that through, what are some things that as you're watching your worship playing back from the week before, and if you're not worshiping at all, we can definitely, or if you're not worshiping online at all, we can get to that too. And before I get too much further here, if you have any questions specifically, we don't have too much of an overall agenda, because what we found is we're all in such unique, special, you know, very specific, site-specific situations that we try to kind of address things overall, kind of through our experiences, specific tools that we've put in along the way. But if you have questions as we're going, please punch them into that chat on the side, or just jump in with your audio at any point here. And we'll try to answer questions as we go. And yeah, thank you, Bill, for putting that Switcher Studio link there. Please click on that, check out that system. We really like that. The other thing I didn't mention about Switcher Studio is that you can wirelessly bring in ProPresenter if you're using ProPresenter. And that's how you can get your lyrics up on your live stream and your visual of whatever it is that you're trying to do. So you can do that side by side, ProPresenter and musicians or preacher or whatever it is. So what I think I'll kind of do here is just kind of keep rolling along. And again, as questions come in, please punch them into the chat. Nolan, cut me off whenever you're feeling something, and we'll kind of go from there. Am I able to share my screen, Chris? You might have said yes already. I'm going to pull up a couple. Here we go. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here with everybody. This is something we put together, and I'm sure a handful of you have seen this already. For those of you that haven't, or even if you have, we invite you to go through this. This is on our website, redriverworship.com. And if you click right on the top at video or COVID-19 resources and video trainings, it'll bring you to this page, which if you see here in the URL, it's redriverworship.com/video tips. So I invite you to go here, and if you haven't already, either you and your team, if you have anybody, you guys are just trying to kind of figure out just the first steps of doing things online well and in a clean way. I think a lot of us were kind of thrusted into it and didn't really take the time to go, okay, does the way we're shooting this makes sense? Does it feel good? If I'm scrolling along on Facebook, am I going to stop and engage in a video that you have on there? Or am I going to click on it and go, well, it looks like a big church, but I can't see kind of what's going on. It sounds echoey. Again, think of those things that might be distracting the viewer, the online worshiper from the experience, and start just working, checking those boxes off as you go. What are the distractions? What isn't clean? What looks blurry or unintentional? And just kind of make a list and then go through and find the solutions. So this video series, I hope, will provide you with a bunch of solutions. Right away, we just kind of a general welcome, and then shooting with your phone or your tablet. So again, Switcher Studio is all done on iPads. That's your highest expense you'll pay is to have 2 or 3 iPads. Outside of that, we definitely recommend, if you're shooting an announcement video, if you're shooting a sermon video, just use your phone or your iPad. Those cameras in there have pretty good specs for being as small as they are. It's wild. I mean, you see these big honking cameras that shoot really nice video. They're great and all, but the things you can do with an iPad or a phone are pretty incredible nowadays. So if you're going to use a phone or an iPad, video number 3 is using a tripod. It's not good enough just to hold it, because suddenly what happens? Whoever's holding its hand get tired, their arms they're breathing the whole time. You can hear them breathing into the phone. There's just a lot of random things that can go wrong when somebody is trying to help, and it's very well intended, of course, but it's just hard to keep it sturdy. So one thing we've done is we've set up a phone right on a music stand before. But I definitely recommend, right here, there's links that you can click on to get a phone mount, to get a tripod. These are ones that we recommend, but you can't really go wrong. Like anything, the more you pay for them, the better quality they're going to be, and longer they're going to last you. But have a tripod for your phone or your iPad. And then audio.
John, can I interrupt quick?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, and I love this. Obviously, we all want to have the best equipment to do the best job ever, but we don't have the budgets to buy a $5,000 camera. And I just love, the Apostle Paul used the tools of his day to spread the message of Jesus to more and more people in his day and age. And I love what I know we created this, but what I especially love about this is, what do you have, or what's pretty cheap, and what's a good way to get started so you can up your game with what you have and the resources you have to purchase a few small things. And you could search these things on Amazon and find thousands of results. But on all of our lists here, we have some examples, ones that we know work well, so we can save you the time of doing that.
Right. And as we go, I'll chat about
John.
this a little bit more at the end. But if there are specific things you're running into, or a problem that you've run into that you're not seeing a solution for through this tonight, shoot us an email, put a comment there in the section on the side. We really want to help you with that specific thing you've run into, because this entire video series is completely built on what we've learned the hard way of trying something and then going, oh, that didn't work at all. And then trying that, oh, we should spend more money on that. And then trying again. So that's kind of what we compiled all this into, was like, okay, these are the best solutions we found for the situation we were in at the time and for the budget that we had. So audio, as I mentioned earlier, you have to take audio very seriously. I early on was like, oh, you can hear it, like, it's okay, it's, whatever. But then you go back and listen to it later, and it's like, you can't hear anything. It's super echoey. It's really hard. If someone's watching online, that's going to get them to click off the video if they can't hear what's being said. And you think like, oh, they can kind of hear, but we are in our mentality of, we know what that guy's saying, or that lady's saying, whatever it is, because we know who they are, like we work there, or we're the ones preaching it, so we can hear what we're saying. But really look at it as if you have no idea who these people are in a video, and just make sure that it can be heard well. So here's some solutions we have for things that you can purchase to put in. And these are different things that'll get audio from your sound system into an iPad or into an iPhone. That would be these, like this Focusrite interface here. A Rode microphone is great. That's what these are right in the video. And I talk about those a lot in the video, so you can learn more there. And then these Tascam Lav microphones. I think, Bill, you've got something like this that you use that work really well. They clip right on, they record right to an SD card. And again, you're able to hear the message really well. Lighting, I think, is the next important thing. Audio and lighting are huge. I would spend more money on audio gear and lighting gear than I would on like a camera. I would stay with an iPad and just get really good at audio and lighting, because there's a lot of things you can do without spending thousands on a camera. Because if you spend thousands on a camera, yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask a question, John?
Oh, there we go. Yep, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
For a microphone, when I was researching microphones, it seemed like all of them were designed to plug into the old style iPhone instead of where it has a microphone jack, but the new iPhones don't have that. Is there a solution for that?
Yep, they make they call it a dongle. I have one in my bag upstairs, but it takes from Lightning to the 1/8 inch input that you want. And you want to make sure you've got, well, if it comes with that microphone, it would be the right one. It has to have the 3 rings. So if you look at those 1/8 inch audio cords, and if they just have 2 rings on them, they're just for sending, or they're just for receiving audio. You need that 3rd one in there that acts as a microphone line that sends signal into that iPad or into the iPhone.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, that's a great question though. Yeah, a lot of them would just come with that cable, so you need to have the adapter then. So for lighting here, we've got some that we recommend. We use all 3 of these solutions almost weekly. The 3 that you see right here in the cover image of this video, these I use all the time, and I use them for Good Shepherd worship right now. And we just have them set up right behind the cameras because our sanctuary was not made for like a well-lit kind of front. We found, as I was learning more and more about lighting as I've come into this position, I found out quickly that our lighting was just architectural lighting. It wasn't actually designed to light up a stage area very well. So when we came into COVID and we weren't shooting, or we didn't have anything in person, we decided, hey, let's move these lights that we were just using to shoot announcement videos, sermon bumper videos, anything for social media that I kind of had set up in my office. We took them out of my office, brought them out to the front of the church, and now we just have them set up, shooting more light at the front, so that way we can get a better shot as we're recording worship every week. So lighting, definitely take a look into that. Visual tips. This video talks about specifically if you're shooting one sermon, for instance, say Bill's doing a sermon for a synod-wide worship, and say he messes up at some point. It's nice to have a second camera. So if you have like a second phone or a second iPad coming at you from the other angle, you see every now and then when you're watching a movie or watching an interview and it cuts to like the side shot where suddenly like they're not looking at the camera anymore. That's done for a variety of reasons, but the 2 reasons I really like is, for one, if you're watching that video as the viewer, it kind of gives you a little more visually to look at. Suddenly it'll cut to kind of another shot and you're like, oh, okay. You know, and visually you're just kind of, you're drawn in a little bit instead of just a one shot. And then the second thing, and probably my most favorite reason for shooting with 2 different angles, is for when I mess up talking or we mess up a spot in a song that we need to cut back to when we're editing, we have another shot to cut to, so that way you can make your edit a little bit cleaner there. Video editing tips. So this is just a bear of a video. We could have spent hours making this one video. I think right now this has been a huge part of my job with Good Shepherd. And I enjoy doing it, so that I was very thankful for that. But editing is a very time-consuming piece of creating video content. And if you don't have somebody that does that, you know, really think about who are some of the kids that are techie? Who are some of the kids that like to just kind of, play on their phones or play on iPads, whatever it is? Put them to work. If you can train them in on a system that they probably already know how to use, if they're already making videos for TikTok or whatever else it is, they know how to use some of this stuff. And it could be a really cool way to get kids kind of involved again, and get them excited about what worship looks like online. We had a seventh grader start on our tech team this last year, and it started because or he came and approached us because he's like, hey, my dad said I have to join a volunteer team for confirmation. Like, is it okay if I hang out with you guys? We're like, yeah, man, of course. By the end of that worship service, he ended up teaching me more things about Switcher Studio, our streaming platform, than I knew. I mean, he'd go, hey, did you know that if you double click this and pull this over here, like you can do this and that? And I'm like, are you kidding me? So it was really fun to see a kid just get excited and go on to teach us. And he was back there every single week after that for a long time. So similar with video editing, you find some kids to help out that might get them excited about using technology. And these are specific programs that we use. I really like this one, the Final Cut Pro. It is a paid program, but they are running a deal on it right now. Apple iMovie is free if you use a Mac. I also use Premiere, but not quite as much. These two are kind of in the same realm for me. Nolan, I know, uses DaVinci Resolve, this one down here, and he really likes that one.
And that one's free as well.
Yeah, that one's free as well. So we'll get back to the video. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to touch on that. Keep going.
Yeah, let's come back to it here. So graphic design tips. This is one thing that I thought graphic design, coming into this job, not being trained as a graphic designer at all, I didn't really think about like designing cool graphics for videos. I thought graphic design was making posters and, making our newsletter look cooler and things like that. But once we really started digging into social media, we realized if we're making some cool graphics, those are things that people like to share. They're things that people can be uplifted with, and just kind of be communicating and engaging with the church on a weekly basis by making some pretty simple graphics. So spending some time on a graphic design program, I highly recommend it. Whatever your position is, having the tools to be able to create graphics for social media, for sermon media, there's for your videos. I mean, there's just so many different needs for having graphics. So one tool I use, and I talk about it in this video, is called Canva. And it's free. I have a paid account just for a few more features now, but for 2 years I used the free account and I loved it. So I definitely recommend checking out canva.com. And you can also check out Adobe Photoshop here if you have the Adobe suite on your computer. If you don't, though, canva.com has tons of stuff you can use. And what's really great about Canva too is that they have a bunch of templates pre-built. So if you find something that you like, all you need to do is drop in your text and you drop in your imagery. So if you have any pictures of your church or whatever it is you want to put in there, and you make it, and suddenly people are going to go, whoa, you made that? Sure did. Except for, worked off a template, but I sure did. So music tips for videos. This is another big one, and I dig into it pretty well, I hope, in this video. But just being intentional about music. If you're watching, we were watching a scary movie the other night. I hate scary movies, but we were watching a scary movie, and this like intense scene came up, and it was just a guy walking down a hallway, but it was like the music gets so intense right there, and it just brings a whole nother flavor to that visual that you're seeing happen. And what we've realized over the years is keeping music somewhere in your videos, your worship videos online is huge. We really like putting those pads, the very just soft, warm kind of ambient sounds. We'll put that underneath the welcome, underneath announcements, and you never want it to distract from the words that are being spoken at all. So if there's ever a time where you're like, oh, it's a little too loud, like pull it back. It can never distract from what you're doing. It's always just to add to the words that are being spoken. So if it's a pad, or if you're doing an announcement video and you want something kind of more upbeat, whatever it is, be thinking about that, because that's a big thing that really helps with viewership online and people staying on your video and watching videos longer. And then on the very bottom here, exporting and publishing, kind of the different platforms that we use and what we recommend. And then you can kind of check out the things that we've done and kind of go from there. So to go back on a couple of these things here, where were we there? So the video editing, like I said, that's the single most time consuming thing that we have, that we've found it takes, especially to kind of build out your overall flow of worship and what you want it to look and feel like. So we decided to offer up editing support for churches. So if this is something that you find or you think that you are going to need, wait, I changed the link here, didn't I? Whoops. There we go. If this is something that you think would be helpful for you, we're working with a few different churches now, putting together some videos and even just sermon videos. So kind of what we've done, the model that we've used so far is using this video series, everything I just showed you, going through and actually watching all the videos, taking notes, making some of the tweaks and the changes that you need to make, and then shooting your content by yourself. And then we set up a Dropbox account for you to upload your videos to. And then, so send us the videos. We will do all the editing and make it a great experience online for your church. And then we will walk you through how to get your video onto an online platform. So if you don't have a platform that you work with right now, we can help you get it set up and kind of go from there. So fill in your info here and shoot us a message, and we'd love to help you there.
I hear,
yep.
The thing I hear from pastors time and time and again is that they are so bogged down with the video editing and putting everything together and getting it to where it needs to be on time. And if you have to choose between video editing and visiting Mabel, who's in the hospital, or somebody who's been alone and lonely and sad, or somebody who's going through a divorce or something like that, and you have to say no to those people because you have to choose to video edit, that takes away from our call as leaders in the church to be for those who are hurting and broken. But you still have to get church online, or you still have to get your work done. And so this is a simple way where instead of you doing it for hours and hours, that you can get it to us and we can do the rest. And there have been several churches that we've been working with who are just so grateful, and something we've heard over and over again from that experience with them is, oh, I didn't even think about doing that way. And they've just enjoyed. And one that I got to work closely with is an old pastor friend, and she's in Jamestown, North Dakota. And she called the week before Palm Sunday in tears. And she had no idea which way was up anymore. And just, I'm sure like many of us have experienced through this time, I don't know what to do, and I don't know how I'm going to get it done. And so we worked together, and I took her videos. Sometimes she would have me do the music and I would put it in. Sometimes she'd have her organist or her piano player recorded. And then I would put that in with the announcements, with the lyrics, whatever it was, and would send it to her. And what's neat about that is that each time I was able to show her a little bit more of how I did it so that she could eventually learn how to do it herself or show somebody else how to do it. So it's not just getting it done, but also being able to train you or your team to do it, or your volunteers, so you can take it off your plate but still come from your church. But that has been such a great ministry for us to connect with different churches and get to know different leaders in our community.
Yeah. The next thing is the music piece. So we, it took us a while to kind of figure out what kind of music you want to put underneath certain videos. If you want them to be instrumental songs and not singing songs, one thing I noticed is when you put a song underneath talking and it has singing, it has vocals, it kind of distracts, it kind of, I don't know, conflicts. What's the word I'm looking for here? But it doesn't work very well with speaking. So we found that instrumental is a really good way to go. And again, the pads, maybe something with a light beat or a piano playing a hymn underneath something. We did a video for somebody where they were reading the "This Is My Song" for the 4th of July, and they were reading it in different languages of different people that live here in the United States. And then, so Nolan just played "This Is My Song" underneath the reading. And then it came into a part where they sang "This Is My Song" afterwards. And it was just really cool, kind of how that kind of built into that experience. So being creative and being thoughtful on those moments. So one thing that we have here, Nolan and I have recorded a bunch of music that you guys can use in your videos here. So you can click on these different links here. And one thing we're really excited about is our hymn library. So Nolan has been recording every song in the hymnal, actually every song that's public domain in the hymnal. And we're recording it, and we're adding vocals to it. We're adding harmonies to it. And we're building out what's called a digital hymn library. So we're really excited about that. It's something that we add music to every single month. And we just want it to be a resource. We hear a lot that one of the hardest things to do is find musicians to lead worship, especially during COVID, when probably some of your most dependable people are afraid to leave their house. And we get it. We're all in a different boat right now. So how do we find solutions still as a church? So we thought that this would be a helpful way to do it. Putting a bunch of songs into a library, into a digital hymn library. And our step now that we're working on is making videos for each one of those hymns. So videos that have the lyrics on the screen. So that way you can come to the digital library, download the video that has "Beautiful Savior" with the lyrics on the screen, and either Nolan and I, or Nolan or I, singing the song to hopefully guide your congregation in singing whatever the song is. So we've been taking requests, specific requests that people have to add to that library. So we update that every single month. Let's see here. And yeah, there's some free ones right here too that you can just download, stuff that we've done along the way. Nolan, anything I missed there?
I don't think so.
I'm trying to find, do we have anything in the chat? I just realized I have not been watching the chat. Oh, here we go.
You stole my bit about, you talked about the scary movie, and I was just thinking about that today too. I got to introduce my son to Star Wars today, and I don't think there's a single moment the entire movie through where there's not music. And we all know, like, the big triumphant thing in the beginning, or the big battles. But even when they're just talking, there's just a soft undertone, and that's what we're referring to often when we say paths. Just something underneath that fills the space, that connects with the viewers. But they've been doing it in movies since movies began. So it's neat to be the church who's living into that as well, and using that kind of tool.
Great. What do you think of Sling Studio? I actually haven't used Sling Studio. Have you, Nolan? A friend did send it to me a while back, but we were really happy with Switcher Studio at the time, so we didn't make any moves. But I've heard it's good, and that they have some really good features.
And they're offline right now for maintenance, so I can't even check them out.
Their website is? Oh yeah, yep, there it is. Shoot, but I've heard good things, but I couldn't give you any direction specifically because I just don't know. So coming up for us, we're working on very specific training videos for Planning Center Online. If any of you use Planning Center Online, it's an incredible tool for organizing your worship. Instead of what I first found when I came to Good Shepherd was that I was emailing, texting, calling, sending letters, carrier pigeon, everything, trying to figure out the best ways to connect with my team every single week, and to get everybody music in advance, and to tell everybody what the song list was going to be. There was just this huge, thing that I had to do every single week to make sure everybody knew what they needed to have. Then I met with a buddy of mine who, another worship director in town, different denomination, but he said, well, you're using Planning Center, aren't you? And I said, no, what's that? And he's like, dude, you need to get on Planning Center now. So we moved to Planning Center online, and it completely changed the way that we are able to plan and schedule worship. Even if you're on a team of 2 to 3 people, all the way up to a team of rotating 30 people, whatever your situation is, Planning Center is designed for churches to get music built into there, to get whatever your scripture readings are for the week, and then everyone just logs right into Planning Center and they can see everything instead of trying to send things out to different people and email. And so that's helped a lot. We're going to be coming out with a video specifically on iMovie. That's one of those video editing programs that we talked about. In fact, I made most of what you're seeing here in this little preview. That's all the editing for this whole video series. I think I made all of them on iMovie. So we really like that. We're going to put together a tutorial for you guys there. And then ProPresenter, we're going to put together a tutorial on. And ProPresenter, I think that was another game changer for us. Initially, I was like, well, we don't need to spend more money on, a projection software that's, just fancier than PowerPoint was kind of my first initial thought. And then that same guy I talked to across town said, you need to do it. It's going to save you so much time in preparing your lyrics for worship. Instead of typing them out, or instead of copy pasting, so scripture alone, for instance, there's one feature on there that allows you just to type in Matthew 10 verses 1 through 11, whatever it is, and you hit enter and it fills out all the slides for you. There's no typing, there's no copying and pasting. It's a Bible machine that's just integrated into the software. That alone saved me a ton of time. And then there's drag and dropping of different songs, and it ultimately saved a ton of time. Like Nolan said, are we spending time planning and working and designing things, or are we able to spend time be in the church and connecting with people? This is one of the tools that allowed us to really do that. Let's see here.
Should we talk a little bit about the difference between live and
Yep.
All right. So when we talk about live worship, different churches are literally doing Facebook Live, where it's like this, where I say something, and if I make a mistake or whatever, you would hear it and we just move on, just like we do in real life worship. And then there's something that we've been doing, rather than being live and having to be there set up at whatever time you're going live, doing your worship on Sundays, to do it ahead of time. And that's how we've been doing it this entire time, where we have our children's people doing their bits, we have the pastors doing their bits, and the announcements, the sermon, the prayers, all of that, and I'm doing the music, and then using these tools again and putting them together in iMovie or DaVinci or whatever the different programs are for that, so that the many times where my guitar string breaks, or I trip over my feet, or I sing the wrong words, or we decide we want different songs, or whatever it is, we can change that and then put it, either just drop it in our Facebook or our YouTube, or be able to, you can still make it look live so that people can still comment and engage. But then instead of the pastors and myself being in a room together and doing it live and not being able to engage, we can sit at our computers when our services go live and ask, hey, how are you doing? What are the scriptures that are meaning the most to you right now? What does this song mean to you? How can we be church together today? Whatever it is, so that we can actually engage with the people during service, rather than having to be in front of the camera at that time. And edit out all the mistakes that I make.
Well, yeah, we can do that. So there's a question here. How about tips for those of us worshiping by Zoom? I haven't worshiped over Zoom at all, so I'm not sure. It would make me a little nervous overall to try it, because of the lags that can happen if you have a piano player sitting in across town and you're singing from another place, or maybe it's a musician doing all the music from one and then preaching from another. That's great. If it works for you, that's a win. I think the only thing I see that sticks out right away is it hard for people to, especially like new people, to click on a Zoom link and get into your worship? Would it be as easy to do that than it would be to like have them click on a video right on Facebook or right on YouTube? The exciting thing we have right now is to do worship online and to find new ways to connect as the church. But I think within that, a big goal of ours has to always be, can new people connect with us very easily? Can they walk through the doors the same way they would be if we were open for church? Can people stumble upon this video and hear the message of God and suddenly go, oh man, we got to connect with that church more. That was great. So being intentional about the newest person connecting with you, I think would be my only concern there with Zoom. But I know it's open. You can click on the link and if that works well, again, that's a total win. You're doing it. You're online. You're making it happen.
There are some settings in your, I just muted myself. Next to the mute button on the bottom left, there's a little point up arrow. And there are some settings to help with the background noise and everything that you can kind of dial in for if you were to sing with a guitar or whatever. Still with the lag, you'd have to have everybody muted, which could get really confusing. And I agree with John, like it would certainly be something that all the people who are always in the front row in our churches this is how we do it, but it would be hard for us to reach more people. And so those are kind of the lens that we look through. How are we engaging specifically with the people who are unchurched, the people who don't like church? So that those are the things that we talk about. What proportion tune into the live stream versus watching the recording later? Great question, Bishop Bill. For us, it's kind of half and half. It changes every week. We found in Calvary, there's such a late culture that 9 o'clock is often either too early because people are tired from going all out on Saturday. And then there are some people who want to get on the lake at 6 in the morning to get the best fishing spot or whatever. And so we have a large crew who are faithful to that time, and we've not changed it once throughout this time. But there's also, we just switched 3 weeks ago where we actually have our Sunday service up by Friday at noon. So that, awesome, Heather. So we actually have people who will have host like a party on their deck or whatever, and they'll have happy hour while watching church together. And maybe that doesn't fit your culture, but for us, it's been so neat. People will watch Friday all the way through the whole next week. So we've got people viewing for a week and a half that compared to if you don't come to church on Sunday at 9 a.m., now we have people watching it through and through. So what feedback are you hearing that folks are participating? Yeah, that is, that's part of that engagement thing that we were talking about. We have, while the service is live, we have people asking for prayers, and like the sermons, we usually end with questions or some action items. We will have notes to go along with the sermon, questions to have with your small groups. So a lot of time there'll be people who are commenting and having conversation. We have one person who hosts, who's answering those questions and asking people and commenting during it to connect with people live. And then the second half is that just like we would if we were worshiping in person, we would still have people engaging in small groups to have those questions and to talk it out, which some people are doing socially distanced at home or at the lake, but we also have people doing small groups online, so that we can continue those questions. I don't know necessarily who's singing and who's not. I get a lot of videos from young kids' parents of people dancing and singing, and so that's super fun to watch. I don't necessarily know how many of each people, but they keep coming back, and so that's a good sign. I don't know if you have anything more on that, John.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I mean, that's the whole thing, isn't it? Like, we want to create a great worship experience for people wherever they're at, and we're hoping that they're singing and praying and participating in the best ways we can. But yeah, I don't know. It's always different. I mean, sometimes, yeah, somebody will check in on Instagram and their kids are just jamming at My Lighthouse. And then you're like, sweet, they like that one. That's great. What a win. And then you don't know if they connected with any of the other ones. But that's just what we keep trying to do.
And that's one of those things, again, like if we were in person, how many people are singing then too? Because
Yeah.
does that mean that they're not engaged if they're watching? And that's not an answer for me. That's we have to think every single week. Will talk as a team, like what can we do more to engage people and bring more people into this. But the small groups has been a huge focus of ours to continue the conversation.
Right.
Well, thank you for that. And it's very in tune with what I've been thinking as well about how, and I think in some ways the online experience or the video experience is helping people who may have formerly stood passively in worship for whatever reason, because that's where they're at, or because they don't like the sound of their own voice or whatever. But I think in some cases it's getting people more engaged. So
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
And to counter that, also to have a conversation, these are the conversations that we keep bouncing back, but what would the quality of in-person worship be inside the church? And I mean, we could talk about everything that's going on. This is not that, but to be masked in church and be so far away from people and not be able to sing, because we know that's one of the ways that it spreads the most. Like, at least we're giving the people the opportunity. And we have been encouraging people to do like watch parties in small groups and families with those they're already engaging with, so that we can still have people participate together.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That's something we haven't done much of yet, but I've seen a few models come out like that, and I really like that. Yeah, and you know, we've all heard the term new normal be throwing around, and it's like, we don't know what that new normal exactly is. We know things are different. We know things are going to be different for a long time, probably forever. But what does that different look like? The one thing that we know we can be doing is building out online church the best we can for our churches, because either way, that's one thing that will be part of the new normal. I thank God all the time that we kind of had a jump start, if you will, and we at least started trying some of this online stuff, 5-6 years ago at my church. And if we hadn't, holy buckets, we would have been in for it here right now. And I know that that's a real struggle, and that's a lot of why we're doing this, is because we really want to help you guys, whatever your situation is. If you've been doing it for a long time and you're just trying to figure out what that one adapter is that you need to make this happen, or if you're like, we don't even know where to start, we invite you to send us an email, reach out to us. We'll get on the phone and chat, and we can try to work together and figure out a plan. We've worked with a lot of tech companies over the last 6-7 years now, and kind of learned a lot of like, okay, never going to do that again, or yep, we're going to totally do that next time. So any ways that we can be helping you guys moving forward, just let us know.
Thank you so much, John and Nolan. I mean, you're right on target. We don't know exactly what the new normal will be, but we know it will involve more of technological engagement, and we have to increase our capacity, and we've proven how adaptive we can be and that we can do it. And this is just, I'm really grateful for you sharing your wisdom and expertise with us, and for the collaborations we've already had as a synod. I don't know if you all know, but they're the ones that make us look good in worship when we do our worship about every 6 weeks. And so we're grateful for that partnership as well. But we keep asking the question. I think it's an important question for you as leaders to be asking, an adaptive question. What are we learning? What are we learning that we can take with us, that will be helpful for proclaiming the gospel, not only tomorrow or next week, but a year or 2 years from now as well. So one thing I here in Northwestern Minnesota, a snow day will never mess us up again. You know, we will have snow days nailed. So we know that for sure. Any final questions for John or Nolan before we wrap things up? Okay. I see my partner in crime there, Kathy Levenhagen, who's our Minister of Community Leader Engagement up in Conference 1. And since you're right there in the middle of my screen, Kathy, would you be willing to offer our closing prayer for tonight? You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, that helps, huh? To unmute myself. Let us pray. Gracious God, you are at work in wonderful and mysterious ways for some of us. Guide us and lead us, give us wisdom and courage to be brave, to try new and different things. We give thanks for Red River leadership sharing what they have already learned and helping us miss some missteps that we may take. And of course, most of all, we are thankful that we can still proclaim the good news. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Bye. Thanks, guys.